Hey everyone, hopefully you can hear me alright. Made this super long tutorial and I want to step through how I'm going to do it, right? Instead of having you read through this thing all by yourself and possibly struggle. Maybe you're new to D3, maybe you're not so new to D3. I do some things in here that might not be clear and I didn't do a good job typing them out. So this is a chance for you to watch me go through my own tutorial. And if it's helpful, I'll do it in future tutorials as well. So there's some quick links here that you can use to jump down to specific sections of the blog post. It's crazy long, but this is more of a reference. What's best is to just start from the top. See, this is how our bar chart will look eventually, um, right? But where do we start? Start by understanding the shapes that D3 is going to need to create these bars. Now, I can show you what these look like in the inspector, but we need to bring D3 into our environment first. Meaning, like we actually need to write some code that allows us to see these SVGs on the screen before you can really understand what this X and Y and height and width and where those come into play. And the background, I'm in Bali. There's motos going through, so I apologize for that. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully it's fun for you. It's fun for me. So what format should your data be in? Your data needs to be in this very simple, two-column structure. Just making it really simple to start with. This is the header, right? Our exporter and exporters, exporter and exports. This is we've got a string here, a text string there, and this is going to come through as text initially, but we can convert it to numbers and it still makes sense. And it's these numbers that we can use to, set the width of our bars. That makes sense. Data-driven, data visualization. We're going to use these numbers to build a bar chart. So we need some way to turn these numbers into bars, and we'll do it for every one of our exporters. So what files do we need? Okay, this is where we start looking at GitHub a little bit. So if I just control, actually I'm on a Mac, so I can only talk to the Mac keys. I'm going to command click GitHub so that I don't lose the page. Option command right jumps me over to this tab in Chrome, and I am using the Chrome browser. So if you want to follow along, it's best to use Chrome for your development as well. We've got these five files here. We've got a app. This is where we do the data manipulation. Then we've got chart.js. You could call this bar chart.js if you want. This is specific to the chart type that we're building. Data, this is the data that we're going to be using for this chart. And then index, this is referencing all these different files. This index.html, it's the structure of our page, our HTML page. And it's going to reference our styles, which are going to make our chart look nice. It's going to reference our app.js, our chart.js, and these files are actually going to work with our data that we bring in. We are almost ready to code. So, looks like, here's the little, I'm using Visual Studio. So if I command space and look for Visual Studio Code, hit enter, brings up Visual Studio Code. Really like this editor. Ran across it when I was taking an ES6 course on Udemy, and converted over from the Sublime world. If we just close the welcome screen and go back to our browser with the command tab and keep scrolling down. So it says once up and running, you should see a window similar to this. It's like, okay, you should see a window similar to this if you've cloned this repository. So if we click clone and download and copy this HTTPS link, we're just going to copy this. then I'm using iTerm, which is it's an independent application. You may not have iTerm. Maybe you're just using the standard terminal. Totally fine. I've been using iTerm honestly, because I saw a couple other developers using it. It seemed handy. Makes copy and pasting a little bit easier. So what we need to do first is we need to go to a place where we want to download these these GitHub files to. So for me, I've got this local folder called personal. I've got a little GitHub folder. I can actually delete this. Got a mastering D3, collaboration. Cool. So I want another folder in here that's I actually want to call it simple bar chart, right? I'm going to clone the simple bar chart boilerplate, but I want a folder here that's simple bar chart because we're going to take the boilerplate and we're going to turn it into the bar chart, the final thing that we're after. Alright, so now that I know where I want this file to go, I can navigate to it in the terminal. So in a Mac or Linux, you'll just do ls to look at the folders in your working directory. And I see personal there, so we'll cd into personal. Then I'll do another check, make sure that's still making sense to me. GitHub, good, I see that. I want to change directories into GitHub. Then I'll share the folders there. The simple bar chart is not there, but I can git clone, and you might need to install Git. If you need to install Git, I just recommend going to GitHub or Google and typing in how to install Git. It's going to let you do things like this. Git clone, then we Control-C. Might not work if you're using terminal, but Control-C. It may. I just can't speak for it. And then if we do a space, we can actually name this directory, name this folder, this folder that we're downloading, something that makes sense to us. And for me, it is simple bar charts, right? Enter, cloning simple bar chart. And then if we look over here, we see simple bar chart, and we see simple bar chart with all the files that were just up here. We're in good shape. Now what I need to do is I need to open up Visual Studio, and I'll make this window a little smaller. Whoa, I don't know what's happening. Hold on. Let me grab the edge of this. There. I won't make it smaller because that was a nightmare. Just get this folder, drop it in there. That's how I do it. You may have another way of opening up a folder in Visual Studio. Again, kill the welcome string, and then I want to open the index.html, and I'll right-click and open with live server. Now, if you don't have live server, if you don't see this option, it means you don't have the live server extension. So if I type in live server, you just want to install live server for Visual Studio Code, and then that'll give you the little right click, show live server. There are other ways to get a local server up and running, but I'm just going to use this one because it's been working really well for me. I like the save a file and see it update in your screen. It's really handy. So now I can kill that tab, go back to my files, index.html, and we see the title was simple bar chart because who knows what chart we're working with. I want it to be bar chart. Save. Command F. And then I'll open with live server. This should bring up a window in Chrome. A simple bar chart. We see some boilerplate title and subtitle, and it looks just like what I've shown you here. Now, if I Command Option J to bring up the console, then we see some things in here. The elements pane. It's just busier than I prefer. So, and meaning there's some things in here. For this little extensions that I have in my Chrome environment. So I actually want to copy this link to my local server and paste it into an incognito window. Look, I don't know if this is, yeah, so less of the extensions are going to show up here. Enter. Same deal. It just makes reading the information for me easier than doing it in the normal browser, the non-incognito mode. Now, if you wonder what the heck is Command Option J, well, you just want to go to more. You want to click this little, triple dot, whatever that stands for, and Developer Tools, whatever your shortcut key is here. Now, Option Command I is going to bring up the inspector. That's fine too. But basically, you go to Developer Tools. This is the inspector. And then we just go over to console. And this is where we're going to be able to log our data and things of that nature. So I can leave this open. It's fine. I will Command tilde, close this. Don't need to look at this anymore. And now it's time to code. Great. So we're in the data manipulation step. So we want to log our data to see, to see that it's working, to see that it's coming through. So if we go to this gist, I just command clicked that link, go to this raw CSV, copy the data right here, then I'll command W to close the tab, and command tab to go back to Visual Studio Code, click on the data.csv, command V to paste it right in here, and command S to save. Now we've saved the data in our data.csv. That was the step. I'm sure that was the step. Now it's interesting. Yeah, your environment's running, yada yada yada. Now let's log the data. Okay. So if I look at Visual Studio Code, actually I've saved, so I should, if my tutorial is working properly, I should have seen the data come through here. And I don't, which means that I missed a step in the tutorial. If we go to chart.js, actually, what we need to do is we need to go to index.html. So we see our app.js and our chart.js. So these two JavaScript files are sort of being stacked on top of one another. So let's look at app.js first, since it's the first one to be processed. We can see that data.csv is referenced, but we're not logging anything. We just go and create this chart with some data and call it a day. But we want to log that data to make sure it's coming through. So if I hit return and console log data, save, then go back to incognito, now we see our data coming through. Okay? You see text for our exporters, text for our exports. The length is 25. Fantastic. So there are 26 elements here. No. Length is 25. Okay. Starts at 0. Goes to 24. Great. Top 25 exporters of medicine in 2016. That's what the data set's about. Alright. So command tilde to go over here. That worked out alright. Now I did skip a step in the tutorial, so if you're watching this, you're in better shape than those reading through it. Hope to make the tutorials better in the future. Now we get to this data manipulation step, so that we can turn that string, that red text, into an actual number. And numbers are blue in the console. So what do we need to do to make that happen? So if I go to our app.js, it looks like I can do something just like data.forEach. I think my voice is going to go. Yeah, it's definitely going. about that. Save that. And look what's coming through. We see our blue numbers now. Okay, had to get some water. Alright, this is good shape. So we've got data coming through, and our data is something that we can turn into bar charts with T3. That was the first stage, pretty much done. Right, the data manipulation stage. So if I command tilde, go back, yeah, we're doing all right. Oh, all right. Now if we didn't sort this data, we'd get bars that are just, coming through as they are here. I don't know if they're sorted here. I don't think they are. They might be. But we just want to need to explicitly sort them. Okay? Because D3 doesn't give you anything for free. So if just after we go through each row of our data and turn the exports string into an integer, and we can do parse int as well. We turn it into an integer. I'm going to assign it back to exports. After that step, we can sort it. So data.sort, and then pass an A and B. Then use the fat arrow, A.exports, B.exports. Yeah. Cool. So I think I said it. It's like it is mysterious. I know it's doing a lot of smart things to sort these, but if you did, this minus this, let's just save and look at our data. All right, so we see Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, France. If we do A minus B, maybe the same thing shows up. Great. So yeah, this sorts it in the opposite direction. It actually sorts it descending. Cool. Logging. We can just keep the log. That's fine. Let's see where we're at now. Yeah. So our data manipulation phase of this little tutorial is done. Next is the DOM manipulation. All right. So the DOM manipulation is not handled in app.js. It's handled in our chart.js. So you don't know how it's happening because we just have this create chart function that's being called with the data, and then we have this other, or this is the function itself, right? And we initialize, or we create this variable called chart, and it's assigned whatever's returned from this new chart. We don't know where chart is coming from. Now, I do, because I wrote it, but it can be a little mysterious. So, chart is actually coming from our chart.js, right? And we just break this up to make it as modular as possible. I don't know if it's more straightforward this way, but for me, it makes things nice to just know that the app.js is taking care of the data manipulation, and it's this chart that's building the chart. Everything to do with the chart is done in our chart.js file. So what is this new chart taking in? Well, it's taking in this body element. The document.query selector is returning the body, and that is going to be our element, and then the data is the data array that we've been messing with ever since. So I can shed a little bit more light on this. If we go over here, I think I just wiped a bug on my face. All right, if we go over here to the inspector, we can see our body. Boom. So this is the elements. This is our going to be the parent element of our chart, okay? And that's where our chart's going to hang out. And when I mean chart, in D3 I mean SVG canvas. Our SVG canvas is going to be appended to this body, okay? And that's what we're going to start talking about now. This is the DOM, the document object model is this thing right here. See, DOM breakpoints. There's a lot of stuff going on in the DOM. If you want to learn more about it, dive in. I'm sure there are plenty of tutorials out there on the web. I've taken a handful or two. So if we go back to our code, go to chart.js, and look at this chart constructor. So the constructor is going to take in those options, and those options are passed in the form of this object. This object has two properties, element and data. So when we see the ops object coming through, it says, all right, I want the elements, and I'll assign that to this dot element, and I want the data, and I'll assign that to this dot data, and then I will call the draw function. Okay, cool. So now in our chart JS, we've got this dot element and this dot data. We have a body tag and data, and we're going to run this draw function. Okay. So what's next in our tutorial? Yep, still looks like, yeah, talking about that a little bit. Okay, draw function. What's going on with this thing? All right, our draw function is going to create a this.width variable, assign it to 960, a this.height variable, and assign it to 500. We're going to have a this.margin to push it down from the top 75 pixels to the right, or from the right 15, up from the body of 50, and over from the left 50. We then have an inner height and an inner width. This is the dimensions of the chart that are going to reside inside of our SVG. So before I get to that, let me make a little bit more sense of the SVG, right? So in D3 selects certain elements on the screen. Just like we saw with the document.query selector, D3 is going to do something very similar. It's going to say select this dot element. It's selecting, D3 is selecting the body element. And then to that, we're going to append an SVG. If we go here, we see the body tag has an SVG appended to it. If I were to comment this out, I'll probably get all sorts of errors. Save. And inside our body, we see no SVG. We see no title and subtitle. We're at a loss. We need that SVG canvas to put our chart inside. Okay. We then, we method chain a couple things to the SVG, setting the width attribute to the this.width, and setting the height attribute to the this.height. Okay? And if we go over here, we see a width attribute and a height attribute. Fantastic. 960, 500. Yep, 960, 500. Things are making sense, hopefully. We then create a this.plot variable. We use that. We method chain and append to that as well. We're going to append a G element and modify the transform attribute of that G element using the margin left and margin top. So basically pushing this G over to the left a little bit, over to the top, or down from the top a little bit. If we look at the G, we see translate 5070. If we go to the left and top, we see 5075. Oh, I misread it. 5075. Great. And we can actually, I can just press the up arrow, make it 70 tab. Oh, and you see it moves over a little bit. Well, look at that. All of these things are part of our chart. Now if I refresh, it'll go back where it was. Great. We then look at the Then we have some more functions that are called scales, axes, title, and chart. These are um, there's just some more building blocks for our basic bar chart. Let's get back to the tutorial. All right, covered that. Yep. Covered that. Covered that. Now it's time to create some scales. Okay. We want an X scale. It's a linear scale. So along the X-axis, we want a linear scale. This is linear data. We want the domain. This is where our bars should start. And then the end of our domain, the maximum of our data in this data set. We need basically a, how do I say this? It's not a range, but the 0 will be mapped to the 0 here, and this element of the domain will be mapped to this element of the range. What am I talking about? Data is related, or the domain is related to our data. The range is related to the pixels on the screen. So what we're trying to do here between the domain and the range is map, these two elements to these two elements. This data to the screen. So we want all of our bars to start at 0. That's 1 for 1. But then we need to translate from the country or the exporter with the most exports to the inner width, how wide our chart is. We want this bar to be as wide as our chart, basically. And then the Y band here, this is giving us like rows for each of our bars. We need these little bands. We need rows for our horizontal bars. We do this with D3's scale band. But we don't want the bars to butt up against one another, just like smashed together. We want a little bit of space in here. So what we do is we have this ratio to say, okay, I want 1/10 of the band to be dedicated to padding. So, if that bar is, 100 pixels, dedicate 10 pixels of it to padding. Give us a little space there. And then the domain, the data part of this Y band, is each exporter. So this dot data is going to create an array for an array of each one of our exporters. That's going to be the domain. So we want a band for each of our exporters. Great. This is how you do it. And then the range around, this is the pixel space, if you will, of our chart. We take the inner height and the bottom of our chart. So the top of our chart to our bottom of our chart. Okay? We take in the first element from our exporter, and that's going to start at the top, and then it's just going to go down for each exporter a little bit, until the bottom of the bottom bar is at 0, which is the bottom of our chart space. So if I type this up, see what we get. Looks like I've got some little boilerplate stuff going on here. I'll just comment this out. Yes, we want some scale. The scale is going to be D3 scale linear. Okay. The domain, remember we want a 0 because it's a bar chart. D3 dot max. This dot data to reference the data set that we're using. D fat arrow D. Oh, yeah, fat exports. Cool. Exports. Close angle bracket. Close friend. Go down to the range. First element of the range, 0. Second element of the range, inner width. Inner width. Cool. Now let's uncomment this. some scale. Our scale for the y is going to be d3.scale band. Right. The range needs to be every element of our data. So this data.map d, that arrow, d.exporter. Boom, boom. And since data.map returns an array, we don't need the angle brackets around it. Okay? So that might have been a gotcha. And then I can delete that trailing parenthesis. The domain here, oh, look at that. I've got these switched up. That's odd. I'm going to cut that, Command X, paste them in there, go back up. Yeah, I'm going to copy this, replace it with that array, dot range, get rid of that semicolon, put the semicolon at the end, then in our range, a couple angle brackets, kill that one, and now we're back in good shape. Inner height, and 0. Now, I'm going to leave this Y scale. This is Y band. I'm going to leave it Y scale. I just like the consistency between these two. What's going to handle my X axis? What's going to handle my Y axis? It's these two functions, these two scale functions. Okay. Let's continue. Or actually, we save, go look at our screen. We see nothing's changed. That's right. We just created two functions. We actually didn't do anything with the DOM. Keep going down. There's some explainers here, walking through what's going on with these scales a little bit, explaining the Y band a little bit more. And now it's time to generate some axes. We'll end up with this, this awful jail cell sort of chart when we're through with this section. So, adding the axes. We need an x-axis, we need a y-axis, and we can just start there before I talk about the SI format. Okay. Super simple here. D3 gives us a couple generators, these axis generators that create a lot of SVG elements on the screen for us. Really, really helpful. Axis bottom, axis left. You can guess that there's also an axis top and an axis right. It's basically like which side of the axis do you want your ticks and your tick text to show up on. So let's go ahead and create these axes. Okay. So if we do const x axis equals d3.axis bottom, bottom, don't need a 0, scale this dot x scale. I'm going to pass in that function that we just created. Then we can do the same for our y. So the y-axis equals d3 dot axis bottom. Sorry, axis left. Scale. Scale that we're going to pass in is this dot y scale. And fix my typo. Great. Save this. And still nothing happens. It's fine. We haven't manipulated the DOM yet. We haven't appended anything special. Now, there's this custom formatter that I created, but before I put this in play, I'd actually like to just append the axes without the custom format. So if we call the axis generator, let's do that. We're going to select this dot plot, or we're going to reference this dot plot and append G elements. G elements, give it a class of x space axis, then an attribute. We need to modify the transform. And translate, we're going to use, I forget what this is called. I forget what it's called. But anyway, ES6, there's this really handy way of injecting some variables into your string. Yeah, much better than the way you used to have to do this. This dot inner height. Cool, cool, cool. Then we need to call our axis generator. Let's see what else there is. Okay. We specify the ticks, the number of ticks, and D3 will try to give us 10. It might not work out perfectly, but it tries to give us 10. Tick size, we want negative this dot inner height. We want them to go up from the x-axis across our chart to give us those grid lines. Height and tick format. This is where we would pass in the custom format. But instead of that, we can just do D3 format, and I think it's like .s maybe. Actually, we don't have to pass this in, so let's see what happens when we don't pass it in. Semicolon, save. Let's see if we get an x-axis. Okay, cool, great. So we do, and we see the billions, right? We see these massive numbers here. Okay. Now, if we keep going with the tutorial, then we can put a y-axis in. So this dot plot, dot append, another SVG group element, give it a class of y.axis, transform that. We actually don't even need this because we're not doing anything. We're not really transforming it. It translates as 0, 0. It means don't move it anywhere. So you can just call that y-axis. And then before I save, I want to show you the screen. So we go here, save, reloads, and we see the x-axis, we don't see the y-axis. Wonder why. Oh, do we have a y-axis? We do have a y-axis. Do we have a y-scale? We do have a y-scale. It's kind of interesting. Ah, I misspelled append. Said append. And still nothing. Alright, so this dot plot append G, this dot plot append G. We give it a class. We don't need to transform here. We call the y-axis. Yeah, everything seems good. Is there anything that I do differently? Did I close it? Yeah, I closed it out here. Y-axis, D3 axis left. We give it the Y scale, which is working out. Scale band, domain, data, exporter, range. Yeah, that all seems good. We can see if this .y scale is working. Oh. Oh. I wonder. No, that shouldn't be a problem. So let's console log the Y scale. Console.log this .y scale. Go back here. Look at the console. Okay. Great. Alright, the console tells us the error that we're getting. So, attribute G, trailing garbage. Ah, translate. Okay, okay. We got an undefined. Should have had the console open earlier. Alright, so if we look at a transform, translate 0, this dot, there we go. Now we're good. Okay. Boom. Yeah, and it gets pushed down. That's good, that's good. Okay. we still get some errors. So this dot plot dot append da 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 da. This dot call ticks. It's not ticks. It is tick. Maybe it's tick. I think it's tick. I got ticks there. Tick size. Yeah. Well, when I do tick, it's probably not gonna work. Alright. Well, I'm gonna stick with ticks. I think that's what it's supposed to be. And we know that our Y scale is here. Can't see it, but that's actually because our margins are messed up. And we'll get to that in a second. Let it load, let it load. Alright, so if we look at our elements, we see we got an x-axis, and we don't have a y-axis, but it's getting pushed down. Okay, it's getting pushed down because the translate's working properly. Okay, but we still don't have a y-axis. So we gotta figure that out. Y-axis. This dot plot append G. Alright. Y scale. Is anything logging if we try to log our x-axis versus our y-axis? So we can do console.log x-axis and just say x-axis. Right. Copy this, go down here, and then just say this is the y-axis, and see if there's any difference between what's showing up in our console. This is some D3 troubleshooting for you. Okay, we got an x-axis, we got a y-axis. Yeah, I mean, it's coming through. We're getting something else. Add axis. Draw. Da 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 da. Add axis. What is happening? Well, it's still complaining about the tick. I don't know why it's complaining about the tick. Hold on. Hold the phone. Yeah. Okay, look at that. That's why. Boom. Yep. X-axis is a generator, right? Just like our chart generator, the bar chart generator, x-axis is a generator, and it has some methods being chained to it. So if we save now, forgot about that one. Hello, look at that. No errors. This is working. Really, really good stuff. Alright, be careful of that. And we know it sticks. Great. Now, we need to revisit this SI format stuff. Okay? So it's .2s. Okay, cool. What I actually want to do is right here say tick format and say d3.format .2s. Off the top of my head, can't remember what this means. It's like 2 significant digits, I think. Now if I save, then we look back here, getting an issue. And that's because I messed up the parenthesis stuff. d3.format. Yep. Close out tick format function. Okay. And I don't need that, but I do need that. Confused again. D3 format. Yep. I like that, but it doesn't. Yeah, we're gonna pass that in to tick format. And yeah, everyone just be happy and go on their merry way. But apparently, okay, save. Wait. I'm not sure. Maybe I still have some funny stuff going on with commenting that we did earlier. So let's comment these out. Comment, or just delete these. Save. Y-axis is being called. Great. Yeah, there's no... Very confused. Sorry about this. I know you don't want to be confused any more than you already are. And I certainly don't want to confuse you. So, that shouldn't be there. Hello, now we're good. Thank you. So we got two digits on either side of, or like two significant digits, two digits that matter. And D3 has a really smart way of figuring that out for us. But when we're working with billions, we get this G coming back. And I explain why that is in the tutorial. It makes more sense when you look at this chart, why we get a G, this giga. And the way we handle it is by creating a little custom formatter to clean up that for us. Clean that up for us, sorry. Let me try to speak properly. Alright, so let's create that custom formatter. SI format. Just wanted you to see what happens when we don't use the custom formatter. So, format, we got the two significant digits, and then we're going to reference that one. So, custom tick format. Function D, I think we can just do fat arrow. Yeah, that's D fat arrow, and we can just say SI format D dot replace that big G with a big B as in billions. Alright, and then we'll just pass custom tick format in here. And see how that goes. Hey, it works. Fantastic. And cleaned up the code a little bit, right? So I know that's not how I said to do it in the tutorial, but it's a little cleaner. Alrighty. So now I think I gave some instruction on making it look a little less like a jail cell and more like a well-formatted bar chart. And I do that by providing some CSS. So let's copy this. Let's go to our style.css, and I'll just overwrite this with his, save, and look at our bars. Yeah. Yep. Now we got Roboto. These are nice and gray. Yeah. We don't have that path anymore. Let me actually Control Z, save, so you can just see what happens. So if I maybe put this over here. Yeah, so this is what it was before the CSS. This is what it is after the CSS. See? Very nice. Okay. Let's bring this down a little bit. Let's take a swig of water. And keep moving along. Hopefully before my computer dies. Yep. All good, all good. All right, now we get to the add titles function. So if we go style sheet, go back to our chart, and look at the add titles function. All right, so we are going to append text to our plot, give it a class of chart title, leave it in the X position, but scoot it up 30 pixels, and refer to the this.title variable. Now, here I've got some boilerplate, right? But that's not how I do it in the tutorial. So where is the this.title variable? The this.title variable needs to be up here in the constructor. So we can actually go back to the app.js and pass in a title and say what's the final title going to be. The final title was, let's look at it, who made the most on medicine exports in 2016? Question mark. Title, oh, we need a comma. Great. And we also want a subtitle. Subtitle, the top 25 are listed below. Great. Save this. Go back to our chart.js and bring those through. So this.title equals ops.title. This.subtitle equals ops.subtitle. Alright. Then we need to make sure we save that. And I'll go down to our title function, our add titles function. Now I'll just say this.title and this.subtitle. And before I save, I want to bring this up. And then I'll save. And look, they changed. They updated. Fantastic. Pretty easy on that one. Now that we got these little links, thanks to DashingD3 for pushing me to put these in here, we can go to our add titles function, scrolls down for us, and keep going. Alright, the only other thing we want to add is our x-axis title. This is really helpful in helping us know what this x-axis represents, what the length of these bars are actually indicating, or what's making these. So when we go here and we close this, we see that there's no x-axis title. It's 5 billion, 10 billion, 15 billion of what? I have no idea. We can add an x-axis title with the code I've provided here. So this .plot.append text, similarly to what we've done above, class x-axis title dot adder x. So we're going to push it over to the inner width. We're going to push it down from the top, the inner height, and plus 30, just sort of the height of the axis ticks. So we want it to go the height of the plot, but then we need it to go a little bit further than that to get past the text. So if I just do it like that and set the text to be exports USD and save, then we'll see it shows up right here. We actually need it to go a little bit lower, and that was the plus 30. So a variable you can toy with. Alrighty. That's it for the titles. Looks like we are finally at the add chart. It's about to look like a visualization. So we go to use this dot plot again and select. We just do an empty selection for all of the bars, basically making a placeholder, and then binding the elements of our data array to that empty selection. Or sorry, yeah, no, that's right. And then entering each of them in the form of a rectangle, an SVG rect. Let me say, give it a class of bar. Gonna set the X attribute. So now we're talking about the attributes of these rectangles that were mentioned way earlier. Let me say adder Y, D, fat arrow, this dot Y scale. We're not doing the band in this video. Oh, D dot exports. Great. That'll give us a bar for each of our exports. Oh, sorry. No. Exporter. Exports is a number. The width of these bars is going to be determined by the exports. So this dot x scale, d dot exports, and then the height we're going to be able to get from our bandwidth. So this dot y scale, can't type, bandwidth property. Good. And let's look at this, save, and we get nothing. Because I did something wrong. How do we find out what I did wrong? Open the console and check out. Oh, well, I was expecting to see errors there. I don't see errors there. I also don't see bars here. Oh, they're rectangles. Interesting. Ah. Well, I spelled that wrong, so that doesn't help. Hey, now I get our bars. They're all smushed, which isn't good. I wonder. Great, so we see bars, and I can expect each one of these bars, and we can look at those attributes that we've been modifying, the X, the Y, the width, and the height. These are all figured out for us, which is fantastic. And this is what I was talking about for the rect much earlier in the tutorial. We've got these attributes of our rectangle that specify, define the shape. Now let's figure out why they're all smushed. I know that my dimensions are off, or the text is getting clipped, and it shouldn't be. So way up in our tutorial, there was a spot where I was manipulating the DOM, and I believe, yeah. So these are the variables that you want. Yeah, for your width, your height, and your margin. So let's put those in place and see what that does. Go here, put these in place, save, go look at our chart. Okay, better, but they're still smushed here. Now, I know that what dictates the spacing of these is our Y scale. So if we go find our Now where we create that scale, see Y scale, scale bands, using our exporter. Ah, no, no, no. I didn't give it padding. So what we can do is say dot inner padding of 0.1. Oh, that's definitely not it. So look at those scales. Ah, gotcha. Gotta get it right. It's not inner padding. It is padding inner. There we go. Alright. And that's it. That is the tutorial. Definitely some differences from what I wrote down to what we just walked through. With some little asides, some mistakes that I made. Hopefully you get to use that in your own development to troubleshoot. Refer to the console. It's going to give you some helpful advice there on what might be going wrong. And just before I sort of cut out, I'd like to show you how you can have a little bit more fun. This is a recommendation from Brick Hobbit. If we inspect this and see our fill here, we can actually play with it. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Right? You can just have some fun with the colors of your bars. Got a favorite color? I really like green. So if I can find a good green. Alright, I like this area. Maybe over. Not crazy about it, but okay. I'm gonna grab this hex code. Right, I want that, and then I'll get out of here and go to my style.css and find where I'm styling these bars. So if we scroll through, you see the Rex fill is right here. Get rid of one of those hashes. Save. And now we've got custom colored bars. Whatever your favorite color is, just go crazy.